In the Elder Ages, when the world was young, elves and dwarfs lived in peace and prosperity. Dwarfs are great craftsmen, lords of the underdeeps, artificers beyond compare. Elves are peerless mages, masters of the dragons, creatures of the sky and air. During the time of High King Snorri Whitebeard and Prince Malekith, these two great races were at the pinnacle of their strength. But such power and dominion could not last. Fell forces now gather against elves and dwarfs. Malekith, embittered by his maiming in the flame of Azurion, seeks to destroy them both, but still darker powers are also at work. Already strained, this harmony sours relations between them until only enmity remains. Treachery is inevitable, a terrible act that can only result in one outcome: war.
This isn't the Grudge of Thron!
Long time ago, before the time of Sigmar and Gilles le Breton, during their age of discovery, the High Elves had allied with many races, among them were the Dwarfs, already a great civilization when they first made contact with the Aesir. The combination of cultures increased the stature of both races. Dwarfs were well versed in the secrets of ancient runes and made the finest weapons in the world, of which many were gifted to the princes and dragon lords of the Aesir. The elves taught the dwarfs how to enchant items on their own in the arts, such as literature and poetry. Trade between the races flourished. Elven silk and steel were much valued by the Dui, and dwarf armor, weaponry and alcohol became a common sight in Althorn. The fortress of Cithrai and Asknamishathi was established at the mouth of what is now the River Eek, present-day Marienburg. Other colonies, such as the mighty city of Tora Lessi, present-day Elangwal in Bretonia, were also founded. In the Age of Strife and the tragic civil war called the Sundering, the Phoenix King Caladan steered the High Elves through their time of turbulence. After the murder of the previous King Belshazzar Malekith, the son of the first king in Mirian. However, as long as Malekith and his followers still lived, there would be no peace. After his defeat at the marches of Meledra and the exile of the Dark Elves to the cold land of Nagarath, the Witch King hatched a plan, creating a spark that would become an inferno. In the Imperial year -2005 IC, several Dracii-raiding parties were dispatched in secret to the Old World with the intention of causing as much strife and unrest between the High Elves and Dwarfs as possible. The Dark Elves achieved this by posing as Asur who were ambushing trading caravans, cheating Dori merchants out of goods and razing several smaller settlements to the ground, the most notable of these being Zakdubaf. This led to the tighter strictures on dwarf and trade routes, harsher sanctions on elves trespassing into dwarf territory, and ultimately the reckoning of many grudges against the Asur responsible. Viking Gothic Starbrick stalwartly tried to avert conflict, unaware of the civil war that had just taken place within Ulthuan. Due to the elves' refusal to speak of it, Starbrick sent messages to the elves demanding to know the reason for the attacks and why the Phoenix King did little to resolve the crisis. The reply was immediate and uncompromising. If Gotrek wanted recompense, he should come to the High Elf capital of Lothar and beg for it. The dwarfs were outraged, but Starbreaker attempted again to cool the temper of his kings, and in 1997 IC sent his best ambassadors and reckoners, led by Falkner to Ulthuan to raise the issue with Calidar II, son of Calidar the Conqueror. When the envoy arrived, many elves realized how serious the claim was. The Phoenix King's advisors a moment. Second Calidar recklessly denied the charges against him and Yasser, and refused to even investigate the origin of the attacks. When Grimbok demanded once again that if the open court could not discover who of their number was responsible for instigating the unrest, then the court themselves would be held accountable, Calidar became uncontrollably angry at Grimbok. Fearing for his reputation, Calidar ordered that Grimbok be shaved off his beard and expelled from Ulthuan, gravely insulting him, the High King and the whole dwarf race by extension. Grimbok returned home, humiliated but with purpose. Starbreaker, upon learning the terrible truth, immediately ordered the forges and armories to begin preparing for war. Grimbok himself later became a slave due to the shame the incident placed upon him. After mustering for almost a year, Dori took his march to war on the Elves, drawing troops from the far ends of the Dwarfen realm. Iron Breakers of Kerek marched with the Longbirds of Kerek Kazgul. Slayers from Kerek Cadlin marched with Hammerers of Ebrand. Upon reaching Tor Alessi, Gotrek made an oath that he would extract recompense either in gold or blood from the High Elves, or he would shave his beard. With a desire to avenge their injured pride, the Dwarfs were not about to let their king break his promise. Upon hearing of the assault on Tor Alessi, Kalida was outraged and ordered his generals to send an enormous fleet to relieve the city. The force that left Alfuden was truly huge, dwarfing any navy before or since, and though the Council of Princes was worried that this would leave their lands undefended, Kalida was determined. And dwarfs fought bitterly until in 1974 IC Kalida slew the dwarf prince Snorri Halfdan after Snorri challenged him to single combat. Being tired of slaughter and wishing to reduce their losses, the elves then retreated. Seeking revenge for his cousin's death, Morgrim led the forces that pursued the elves. For many years the Asur retreated until they decided to stand and fight at Origa, 1968 IC. When the lions met, rivers of blood flowed and hundreds on each side lost their lives until Ordin Ludwig, the prince commanding the High Elf main army, was slain in single combat by Morgrim, and the elves retreated once again, this time leaderless. Morgrim was crowned a hero, and he continued to capture through the elven towns and cities across the old world, notably raising the city Ardmeria in 1948 IC. The heroes Lord Zalenda of Toracha and Brockstrumfist of Kerek-Kazul, who had previously fought many great battles, eventually lost both their lives in the doomed city, crushed by the burning, crumbling towers. The dwarfs were quite unlike any foe the elves had ever faced, refusing to give up even when doom or defeat was assured to them. The war became a stalemate. The mountain fortresses of the dwarfs were unassailed land, but Dori laid siege to Tor Alessi 13 times, but unable to penetrate the city's walls. Much of Athelloren was destroyed as the war continued for another 450 years. Though it was the elves that took the most losses during the course of the war, in the aftermath of the Phoenix King's defeat and death by the hands of Gotrek Starbreaker, once the thronged Zan armies of the dwarfs returned to their mounted kingdoms in celebration of their victory, a great cataclysm ensued that rocked the very foundations of the world's Edge Mountains. None knew the true reason for such an event, but the resulting earthquakes and volcanic activities forced the mounted kingdoms into near complete isolation, as the surface began to grow blackened by ash and fire, and large sections of the underway of the dwarfs were rocked into ruins. Though it had many names, the dwarfs of old knew the Sage in their history as the Time of Woes.